I'm recording this in case you need to go back for it or something. Okay, so first check the GCF and factor that. So what that means is, like, if you have, we'll say, if there's a number in front of your x squared. So if you've got like 5x squared plus 10x plus 25, then you notice that leading coefficient, this one, is a factor of 10 and 25. So that means you're going to take that 5 and you're going to factor it out. And that means you're just going to take it and you're going to put it out front. So you're going to go 5, and then you're going to go parentheses. And 5 times x squared. So you just have your x squared there. And then 5, you see what times 5 would give you 10x. And that's 2x. And then you say what times 5 would give you 25. And that's 5. So that's how you factor out the GCF. Okay, for trinomials, oops, I'm going to get black. For trinomials, with 1 as the leading coefficient. We're going to create a puzzle tray. And put the easy pieces in first. I'm going to write just an example down here. So let's say x squared minus 3x minus 4. That's true. So first we're going to create a puzzle tray. So that would be this. And then we're going to put the easy pieces, or x, in first. X there and x there. Okay, then you're going to do the signs. So put the first sign in the first binomial. Okay, so that would be first sign would be this minus right here. So that one we're going to put right there in that first binomial. And then we're going to multiply it by the other sign for the second binomial. Okay, so that means we're going to go negative times negative would give us a plus. So into that second binomial, we're going to put a plus. I'm going to have to erase this at the top. Okay, next we take the constant and we factor it. So we factor the constant. Get rid of all of it. Okay. Okay, we factor the constant. To get the sum or difference, sum slash difference, that is the coefficient of the second term. I'll say middle term, the coefficient of the middle term. Okay, so in this case, the constant is 4. There's only 2 possibilities. We're going to factor it by exhaustive factoring, which means we're going to exhaust all the possibilities. So we've got 1 times 4 and 2 times 2. And 1 times 4 is our winner because this time we're looking for a difference since the constant is negative. We're positive we would be looking for a sum. So 1 times 4, and we're always going to put that bigger factor first. So 4 there and 1 there. So I'm going to put up here, we want the sum if the constant is positive. And difference if the constant's negative. Okay, sorry. Queenie, no. Okay. So difference of squares. And this is on those same notes, factoring notes. Okay, so you've got, if you combine 2 terms, where each of the 2 terms is a perfect square. Okay. And the sign is a minus sign. So that means it's a difference. Sign is a minus sign. That's what a difference of squares is. Okay, so if that's the case, then here's your example. So if you've got, say, x squared minus y squared, then there's a pattern that you follow. And you just take the square root of the first term, which is x in this case, put it here, and you go plus and minus, and then the square root of the second term, y and y. So I'll show you a couple of examples. Say, if we have x squared minus 1, 1's a perfect square. So that is just x plus the square root of x squared is x, so it goes there. Your signs are plus and minus. The square root of 1 is 1, so 1 and 1. A couple more examples. And this is going to make your assignment so easy. Actually, you know what? Let's just do, instead of examples, let's just do your problems. So we're going to factor m squared minus 49. You look and you say, okay, well, m squared, that's a perfect square. Get rid of the rest of this junk. M squared is a perfect square, 49. So all you got to do is you do your puzzle tray like you do with trinomials, even though this is the binomial. And then the square root of m squared is just m. And then you go plus minus 49, 7. Okay, so for this one, it's tricky because they put the variable in the second part and the variable has a coefficient. So still the same thing though. It's 64. If you're not sure if it's a perfect square, you could, put it in your calculator. Take the square root of 64. What is the square root of 64?
8.
Yeah, so that's 8 squared. So let's just rewrite 64 as 8 squared. And then minus, and then what's the square root of 81? You just found it a second ago.
9.
Yeah. So that's 9. And I'm going to put this one in parentheses since it's got the d squared with it. So 9. And then the square root of d squared is d. And then you got that whole thing. It's too high up. It's got the little zoom thing coming. Okay. So, and then squared. Okay, so if you've got that, all you have to do then is you just put your parentheses, your puzzle tray, and you take that, whatever that first one was, 8 squared. So it's 8 squared. So 8 goes here and here. We got plus and minus. And then what I have in parentheses there, that 9D goes here and here. Okay, so this time they both have coefficients. Both perfect squares. So we're going to, gotta get my pencil. We're going to first, hold on. First, we're going to find the square root of those coefficients. So find the square root of 16 and then find the square root of 169. Okay. So the square root of 16 is 4. The square root of x squared is x. So the square root of that whole thing is 4x. And then that means that that's 4x squared. And then the square root of 169 is 13. The square root of y squared is y. So that means that's that whole thing, 13y, and then squared. and then that minus is there. So I just rewrote this whole thing as 4x squared minus 13y squared. So now all we have to do is do the puzzle tray and fill it in. Okay, so after we square rooted this, we got 4x. So whatever the square root of this whole thing is, this 4 is 4x. That's going to go in your first spot. So 4x goes here and 4x goes here. Okay, then we have our plus and our minus. And then the square root of this whole thing is 13y. So 13y is going to go here and here. So 13y and 13y. So what we do, going back, we take the square root of, we did the square root of 16 to get 4, the square root of x squared to get x. And so that whole thing is 4x to the second power. And then same thing here, square root of 169 is 13, square root of y squared is y. So the square root of the whole thing is 13y. So now that's what we're doing. Like what I'm doing here is kind of like this squared minus this squared. So whatever's in parentheses. So whatever's in parentheses has to go first in both of them. Whatever's in parentheses here has to go last in both of them.
Okay.
Okay, so if you have a squared minus b squared, then just write down the pattern is a plus b times a minus b. Okay, so each time you have something, let's look at what a is. So here, this a, so this is 8. So we're going to say a squared minus b squared. Well, a is 12, b is 9. So we're just going to plug in 12 in place of a. So 12 goes first. And then we have plus and minus and 9 in place of b. So 9, we're going to substitute 9 for b. So 9 there. Okay. So that's how they're having you write it. They're saying evaluate it this way. So 12 plus 9 is 21. And then 12 minus 9 is 3. So 21 times 3, if you put that in your calculator, you get 63. Resume. Okay, so a perfect square trinomial. That's another special product. Trinomial has 3 terms. Okay, so if we've got x squared plus, I'm just going to say this is ax plus, I'm sorry, hold on, I'm going to say 2ax plus a squared. That's a perfect square trinomial. Now, that doesn't make a lot of sense with variables. So let's look at it this way. So if you had, and for example, that doesn't show up. So hold on. Okay. So for example, if you had x squared plus 12x plus 36. So you look, if you have the first term is a perfect square and the last term is a perfect square, you check to see if the square root of that one, which in this case, the square root of 36 is 6. So you check to see if if that times 2, so 2 times 6 is 12. I'm going to move that bar. 2 times 6 is 12. Okay, you check to see if that is your coefficient for your middle term. And it is. And if it is, then it's the answer to this, or the factored form of this, is a binomial squared. So it's just the square root of the first term plus the square root of the last term squared. And then, so every time, if you have, do another example. In black, because red's harder to see. So another example, let's say we have x squared plus 6x plus 9. I look at this and I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it and see if it works. Okay, so the square root of x squared is x. The square root of 9 is 3. And then that, you always use this sign right here, whatever, for your sign. Okay, and then squared. Well, if that works, if that's true, then 2 times 3 times x is going to be my middle term. And it is. 2 times 3 is 6 times x is 6x. That gives me my middle term. Okay, I'm going to show you, though, that you can get, tricked sometimes. So sometimes you might have, let's say, x squared plus 13x plus 36. And you go, oh, okay, well, this is a perfect square. This is a perfect square. So maybe that's a perfect square trinomial. So if it's a perfect square trinomial, it would factor to be a binomial squared. So let's see, 36, square root of 36 is 6. So let's see if that's true. So that means that 2 times 6 times x would be my middle term. Well, it's not. So instead, that one, you would go, okay, my exhaustive listing, 1 times 36, 2 times 18, 3 times 12, 4 times 9, 6 times 6. I have to see what factor pair adds up to be 13. And that's that one. So that's not the right factorization. Instead, it would be x plus 9 times x plus 4. So most of the time, well, I won't say most of the time, in this particular assignment, you're going to be finding those perfect square trinomials. But sometimes you'll find out that even though that's a perfect square and that's a perfect square, it doesn't work. So just a thought there. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We are going to say, we're just going to assume this is a perfect square trinomial. So we're going to say this is a binomial squared. So the square root of p squared is p. And then if you put in your calculator the square root of 225, you get 15. And then that's a plus. So we'll put a plus right there. And then now we check. 2 times 15 times p is 30p. So that is indeed a perfect square trinomial. Okay, so the shortcut way, we're going to we know that it's going to be a binomial squared because, first of all, that's what this assignment is. Second of all, because that's a perfect square and 4 is a perfect square. And if I'm not sure about that last number, I can put it in the calculator and square root it. And if I get a bunch of decimals, I know it's not a perfect square. But anyway, so that means I'm going to follow this pattern. I'm just going to put one set of parentheses and put a square up there. And then I'm going to take this first one, x squared. The square root of x squared is x. And then I'm going to take that sign right there, put it in the middle, and then I'm going to take the square root of 4, which is 2, and put it right there. And then I know I'm right because 2 times 2 times x is 4x. Okay, sometimes you have a minus sign in the middle. So if that's the case, you just, if this is, first of all, you're checking that's a perfect square, and then you put 196 in your calculator, square root of 196, and you get a nice pretty number of 14. So you know that that's could be a perfect square trinomial. So we're going to try it. We'll go our binomial squared. If it's a perfect square trinomial, it should be a binomial squared. So the square root of a squared is a. Now here's a minus sign. So we're just going to put a minus right there. That's the only difference. Excuse me. And then you take the square root of 196, and that's 14. Now we check to see 2 times 14 times a. 2 times 14 is 28. 28a. And that is indeed a perfect square trinomial. If you're doing an assignment where you know that they're all perfect square trinomials, another way to do it is the easy way would be to go square root of that is a, take half of that and put it right there. And then you can check it by going 14 squared to get 196. Half of minus 28 is minus 14. So that is that. And I hope everything is good for you. Have a fantastic day.